Asato ma satgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityurma amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. The subject of my today's talk is, do we need a role model? A few weeks ago, I had the opportunity of giving a talk on 4 fruits of life. That was incidentally a subject which led us to that we need to have a goal in our life. So the goals are determined, and broadly they are classified into 4 categories that I told. That means dharma, artha, kama, moksha. It is actually in our scriptures, it is very well documented. Dharma means righteous living, artha means money or wealth, kama means enjoyments, and moksha means liberation. So these 4 are primary goals, and there are definitely in each category there are different ways of reaching these goals, and that are also understood. So now the point comes that means, well, goals are there, but then how to reach the goal? If somebody has reached the goal, whether we can follow him, and those questions come. And definitely it is very important. First, it is very important, I must repeat that saying of Swami Vivekananda. He has said that, well, if somebody has a goal, he may fail 1,000 times. But if somebody does not have a goal, he will fail 50,000 times. So that shows the importance of having a goal. So once we understand that goal in the life is very important, naturally it comes to a point where we need to follow a goal. And for that we need to find out somebody who has reached the goal in the 4 aspects of the life. So in that way, ultimately we see that if we have somebody in front of us as an ideal, then actually we can fix our mind on that person and what he did under what circumstances in the life, and in that way we can go forward. That is the point. So whatever may be the goal, but living the life of a human being very fruitfully is definitely important. And if somebody has shown that way, that will be definitely good for everybody. In every aspect of our life, that will be very good. So that boils down to a case of a role model. The role model, as you know, that in our day-to-day life at this present age, we find that it is very difficult to find out a person who can be fixed as a role model. Probably for music, you can have that musical aspect, maybe of a person is good, but in totality, probably it may not be that lucrative. That means you may not like to be like that person. So in every aspect of our life, you'll find somebody has done some successful things and become a very successful person, but in totality of the life, actually, he may not be. That means you have to make shortcut, what is called cut some of the things that he has done or he has said or that has been said about him may not be very palatable. But one aspect is very highlighted, and in that way, we can fix our mind. But from the point of view of the totality of the life, if we want to have somebody, so in every aspect of the life, he should be ideal. That is the point. And it is said, I remember that when the life of Swami Vivekananda was being written, and time to time actually it is also being revised and new materials come, and in that way it is added, and in that way now of course it is almost, I cannot say it is complete in every respect, always there is a possibility of coming some incidents or some reminiscences, and they need to be checked. So one of the editors of that book had said that when we see something or hear something and we go into the depth of that, actually new facet of the life of Swami Vivekananda comes into our vision. So in that we discover something which is very not only interesting but actually reveals something which is very great. That is which is not really found in the common man's life. So we are always open for getting new things about him. So in the same way, this question is an eternal question. That is, it is not for this present day, because human beings like to follow some ideal. Even if we do not have a good ideal, actually the ideas that we follow, as I told you, ultimately after following some time, we shall find that we have misled. It may happen that we are doing something which is not really palatable. Not only palatable, that means it may not, it may be disastrous also sometimes. That means the bad habits of that person, all the good people have sometimes have bad habits also. Probably we think that if we practice the bad habits, well, we shall become good or like him. In that way we focus, which is really completely disastrous. But in every respect, if that person is very good, then actually there is no possibility of falling down. So in that way, we see in ancient times the question came in the mind of one great sage. His name was Valmiki. And the name came in this way, that in the young age he was a highwayman, that means a robber. So it so happened that he could not earn money, so he took to this, what is called the business or the profession of robbing people. So what he used to do, he used to hide in a secluded place in the forest area. In those days, from town, a city to city or village to village, they used to go, they had to cross this forest. So in a place he used to hide down. And whenever he saw a person is passing and he thought that he might have some money or some valuable things, he used to pounce upon him and used to rob him, and in that way he used to collect money. And in that way actually he sustained his family. And in his family, his parents were there, old parents were there, his wife was there, and he himself was there. So it is a not very large, but still it is a large, medium-sized family, if you call it. So in this way, he was doing this, and one day one sage was passing that way, mendicant, he was passing that way, and that robber did not know who is he, so he also pounced upon him. And he said that, well, when he was caught, that mendicant said that, well, you see, I don't have anything with me, but he did not believe. The name of that robber was Ratnakar. So he did not believe him, so he was almost, he was about to kill him. At that time he said that, well, just stop a moment. So why you are doing this type of heinous work? Can you please tell me? He said that I have tried all the avenues of my earning. I tried to earn money in different ways, but I was not successful. So ultimately I have to maintain my family, and so that is why I am doing this type of job. But then the mendicant said that, well, do you believe or do you think that the way you are earning your money, you are definitely, it is a sinful act that you are doing. And do you think the way you are, the money that you earn and the sin that you are committing, that sin is shared by the members of your family because this money is coming out of sinful acts? He said very joyfully that yes, definitely, they will also share the sin that I am committing. Then the sage said that, well, you better go and ask your family members whether they share these, what is called, sins that you are really committing by killing people, robbing them, and all those things. And that Ratnakar thought that probably this person wants to escape. And the sage actually read his mind, said that, well, I won't go away, you just better tie me with a rope on this tree, and then go to your home and ask your family members whether they actually share the sins that you are committing. So he did what the sage said, and he went to his home. And he asked his father, and that, do you know how I earn money and sustain you? The father said, no, I don't know, that is not my business. It is the business of the son to take care of the old man, so I do not bother about that. Then he said that, well, I do like this, that he explained in what way actually he earns money. So father was very angry, he said, get out, I don't want to see your face. So in that way he just scolded him and told him to go away. Definitely he did not want to hear even what he was saying. Then he went to mother. Mother also said that, well, my son, you are doing these things I never knew, but definitely I cannot share your sins because it is the duty of a son to earn money and sustain parents. So whatever is happening, it is yours. So in the same way, actually, he went to his wife also. Wife also said that, no, never, I cannot really share your sins because it is the duty of a husband to sustain the wife. In whatever way he brings money, that is not my business to see. Then actually he was very much upset. He believed that all the members that he is sustaining, he is getting the support from them. Then he came back to the sage and said that, sir, I have made I have mistaken. That means I thought that I have some support behind me. Then the sage said that, you see that all the sins that you are committing are yours only. Then that Ratnakar, that means that dacoit, as they are called in India, that is robber, said that, sir, please save me. I have done so much sins that I don't know how to get rid of it. Then the sage said that I am giving you this mantram. That is the sages give mantram, sacred words, and he said that you repeat this and all the sins will be washed away. So he gave the name, sacred name words, and he started doing practices. And for a long time actually he did meditate and repeat the name. And ultimately it is said that again the sage came back on that way. And he saw that the person was definitely not there, but there was a mound of termite there. So he started calling that person by his name, Ratnakar, Ratnakar, like that. And suddenly, actually that mound actually shook up. And out of that actually came out that person. And he was full of this termite all around. He said that, sir, you have come back. Then actually sage was very happy and said that, well, your spiritual practices actually washed away all of your sins. Now you are a sage. Nobody will call you as Ratnakar, the highwayman. Now you are a great sage. Balmiki. Balmiki means around which a termite has built their nests. So in that way he started his life. He changed his life completely and renounced and became a sage. So then after becoming a sage, he went to the bank of a river which is known as Tamosa. Tamosa is a river, it is still there, but the name, it is a rivulet actually in the northern part of India. It is a tributary of Ganges above the what is called the capital of the state of Bihar called Patna. So there is a still, that means I just checked, still there is a place which is inside a national park. This national park is such that one side is Indian national park and the other side is Nepal's national park. In that way, two national parks are joined together, and it is just on the border on the Nepal side. It is called Valmiki Ashram. Still it is called Valmiki Ashram. And it is also, it has got another local name, Chitavan National Forest or something like that. So they have located, or it is by tradition it has come down on the bank of the river Tamosa, that there is a place where actually he lived afterwards, that when he became a sage. So the story starts from there. So he became a sage, so naturally he did spiritual practices and all those things, and ultimately one day he went to the bank of the river and took he was going to take a bath in the river, and on the way actually he saw that on the top of a tree, two birds were making love. That means they were very in springtime, so naturally they were making love, and he was very happy that spring has come. So in that way his mind was very what is called, full of happiness. But suddenly he saw that one arrow came and shoot that one of the birds. And that bird actually was killed and fell down on the ground in front of him. And he was very much upset. And not only upset, he saw that the other bird actually came down and just showing his pain and all those things. So that actually covered his mind with sorrow. And suddenly he saw that hunter who actually killed that bird came in front of him. And by seeing that hunter actually, he uttered a few words. That means he did not know how to express his what is called anguish to this hunter. So he said in this way, the meaning of that is, thou art a wretch without the smallest mercy. Thy staying hand could not stop even for love. And in Sanskrit actually the words are ma nisada pratishtham tamo gama sashwati swama yat kroncha mithuna dekam avadhi kama mohitam. So when these words came out, that means he was not conscious at what he was really uttering. So when he himself heard these words, actually he himself was astonished that such words came out of his lips. And it is said this is the first time actually poetry came out of what is called as composed in Sanskrit. Before that, these incidents are actually, if you go by the mythological timing, it may be about 6,000 years ago or something like that. So before that, the Vedas were there. They were not what is called composed in the poetical form. They are just what is called like aphoristic statements of the sages. So he was very astonished and he thought that, well, yes, I have this talent, or he was very happy and whatever it may be in that way. That first time actually poetry was composed in Sanskrit language. Swami Vivekananda actually gave a talk on Ramayana. He said, he also has said in this way that before him actually all the compositions of Sanskrit were archaic and they were actually in the what is called in the form of aphorism and all those things. But for the first time actually poetry came out of the lips. So the distinction of the first poet of Sanskrit goes to him. Valmiki is considered to be the Adi Kavi, that means original poet. So he was passing his time and many incidents happened. That means he was contemporary of Rama, great king Rama. And it so happened that Rama had left his wife Sita in his care, and two sons were born. He actually trained them up, and in that all those activities were going on. Then once it so happened that he said that, well, I would like to use my talent, that means that I have, for the good of people. So what can be done? He said that I would like to illustrate a person who will be supreme in all the good aspects that one human being actually can have. So that was in his mind. So he was thinking in this way, what to do, sitting in his cottage, and at that time another sage came. His name was Narada. Narada is a very fabulous king, fabulous poet and sage. Fabulous in a sense, not in the sense of money, but from the point of view of his activities. That means he roams about all over the world, especially where sages are there, and in that way he counsels them, and the sages love him, and in that way he was traveling. Actually, this Narada was instrumental in turning him from a what is called highwayman to sage. So naturally, when he appeared before him, he was very happy and welcomed him. And during the conversation, it came out that Valmiki was contemplating to write a poem, compose something describing the life of a person who will be a model of a human being. So he expressed that. So at that time he said that, sir, this is the desire that I have in my mind. So can you please tell me if there is such a person whom actually I can illustrate in my poetry? So what he actually said is like this. In he said that, well, once in all humility, the austere sage Valmiki asked sage Narada, That means he was a disciple, so naturally he was in a humble way. He asked Narada, who was ever engaged in tapos and Vedic study, and who was the most noted among the knowers of Vedas, the following question. That means these are in his mind, that means in ancient days actually studies of the scriptures and all those things were important. At the same time, other qualifications are also very important. So he said his catalog of qualities that he had in his mind are like this. Who in the world today is a great personage endowed with all virtues? Who is courageous, who knows the secret of dharma? Dharma means the righteous living. Who is grateful, who is ever truthful, and who is established in sacred observances. That means there are observances that needed to be followed by human beings for the good of themselves and for the good of the societies. So we do all those things, religious observances. Who has great family traditions, who has got sympathy for all creatures. Sympathy for all creatures, that means not only human beings, but sympathy for all other creatures also, subhuman beings also. And not only that, he hails from a noble family also. That is the point. Who is most learned, who is skillful, and whose outlook is ever kindly. Who is courageous, who has subdued anger, who is endowed with splendor, who is free from jealousy, who when angry in the field of battle is a terror even to the devas. That means when he is angry to kill somebody because he wanted somebody who is really a warrior also. That means that valor also be in his character. So he'll be so angry that actually the people, not only people, even the gods will be afraid of him when he is in that mood. I am interested to know about this. My desire, that means he is asking Narada, that means Valmiki is asking Narada, O sage, you have the capacity to know all the real worth of a man. Narada is a very knowledgeable person. His story is like this, that he was born of in an ashram retreat, and his mother used to take care of the sages, old sages. In those days, old people's home was not there, so old sages needed to be taken care, and he was born there. And he had the advantage of knowing scriptures and life of the sages, spiritual life from the very early age. So naturally, when he grew up, he wanted to become a spiritual person. And he did that, and ultimately he had the great blessing of Lord Vishnu, that means his chosen ideal, and who came to him and said that, well, you will live forever and just go around and teach people about God's name. So in that way, actually, he took that mission, and all around actually he moved around and did that. So when Narada heard this from Valmiki, actually he said that, well, in front of you there is an example. So then he said that Rama is in the line of Ikshakus, there was a prince named Rama who was very famous among men. That means he told that, well, Rama in front of you, Rama is there, and he actually possesses all these names. In fact, if you catalog, that means if you list all the qualifications that Valmiki wanted to illustrate in the character of his poetry, so you will find that it is about 18 or something, 15 actually. It comes to 15. And when Narada described that this person Rama, that means the king Rama, if you illustrate his life and he adheres how many qualities, it came to about more than 25, not only 25, I think more than that. It came to 41. So he said that Rama actually has got so many qualities. So if you illustrate his life, then your work will be done. And that actually Valmiki took into account, and then he wrote the book which is known as Ramayana. Ramayana is the most ancient epic and it contains about 24,000 verses, two-line verses. That means the verse which actually first came out, the line, two lines, the poetry or the slokas as they are called, came out in the same pattern actually. He composed the whole of the Ramayana. And Ramayana starts from the very beginning with the birth of Rama. And of course there is a description how the lineage and all those things. And it ends, his composition as it is said, ends with the Rama's coming back from his, what is called, he went into exile, and after exile he came back and took the throne. That means he became the king of his kingdom, Ayodhya. The story is very simple in a sense. There is no complicated thing in that story. And story is very educative also. Educative in a sense, full of thrill, because situation and circumstances actually is full of suspense and all those things. And definitely it is a book which can be read and reread many times. And it is still being done in different ways. Nowadays, of course, the book has been written and rewritten. Not only that, comic books also have come out. And also movies, many movies of course has come out, and also it has been serialized in TV also. And they are very good. Good in a sense, that means they have influenced many people, and people like to see that repeatedly, and it is very educative also. Very neat, clean, and also children love them. Love them in a sense, that means it is not boring at all. So you can say that if TV serial is there, it may be half an hour or 45 minutes. So every week actually people will throng around the TV and watch that the serialization by different actors and actresses. And in fact, one of the series that came out was maybe 20 or 25 years ago, maybe a little like that. So that became so popular, some of the actors actually become very famous. And not only very famous, they actually, what you call that means, they were elected by people for the, what it is called in the assembly, what is Central Assembly as it is called, that means Parliament of India. That also, yes, one of them was who played the role of Ravana. So the point is that they are popular, that shows the popularity. People, though it is, the story everybody knows, the story is very simple, I shall tell you in a short. That means Rama was the prince and he married Sita. And then actually he had to lose the kingdom because one of his mothers actually wanted third son. He had four brothers, so one of his brothers, his step brother was given the throne, and he was sent to the forest and exiled for 14 years. And in the exile actually many things happened. And he lost his wife there because this Ravana, the demon king from Sri Lanka, at that time it is called Lanka actually, and in that way he was robbed, and then actually he had to wage a war, and ultimately Ravana was vanquished, and he brought back Sita, and then he came back to his kingdom, his forest life was over, and he was coronated as a king. And during this say that Rama was such a good person that his time is considered to be Rama Rajya. That means people as happiest person. That means there is no crime, nothing. People were well fed, taken care of, and all those things that you can imagine actually was there during his time. So it is said Ram Rajya. The word means, that means it is a sort of best time that to live. So ultimately it happened that towards the end, Sita was in banishment for some time with Ravana. So people thought that he must not, when he was there, they did not know how she had lived. So they wanted test for how actually she lived, whether she was chaste. And she passed all the tests, and ultimately it so happened that people recurringly wanted that. Ultimately Sita was fed up, and she actually, you can call it committed suicide, but in a divine way it is said that he had jumped into a crevice and then actually she perished. And Rama was also very much upset with that because she lost her wife in that way. And ultimately she also relinquished. Relinquished in a sense, that means he made his sons, gave the kingdom, and then he went to the forest, and ultimately it is said that he died in a he was drowned in a while taking bath in a river. In that way, his life was his life ended. So the story is like this, but the point is that what are the qualities actually one can have, and why Rama is considered. And in his life actually, he illustrated all the good qualities that one man can possess. That is the point. That means a role model means in every aspect of the life actually find something which has done, which is there exalted very much. That means we see that. So first is that in the line of Ikshakus there was a prince named Avadha. That means he had a great lineage. Ikshaku means, that means in India, in ancient times, it is said, mythological times, there are two races. One is sun race and another is moon race. And in that way actually he was born in that what is called sun race, if you call it, Ikshaku. The first king's name was Ikshaku. So he hailed from the what is called the lineage of sun, so that he hailed from that. He was very famous among men and he was possessed of self-control. That is the point. The very important thing is the self-control. That means he never expressed any outburst of any emotion and all those things. But he was very cool-headed, if you call it in a way. He was very powerful in a sense physically. That means if you, he has given description, that means how actually he looked. There is a detailed description of how his body was there, shoulder was there, legs were there, and muscles were there. All those things are described, which are really ideal. So he was endowed with splendor and he was firm in his resolve. That is mental thing. That means whatever he promised, actually he kept that. In that way you see, it so happened that when he was young, because he was the eldest prince, so his father Dasharatha said that nominated him to be the successor. So that went on for about 12 years. But it so happened that his stepmother, her name was Koikeyi, she had a very, what is called, notorious maid. And that maid actually gave some bad advice to her. It so happened that Koikeyi at one time had taken care of the king Dasharatha when he was very sick. And she did so splendid job that Dasharatha said that I shall give you 2 or 3 boons. Boons means that whatever you ask, I shall give you. Koikeyi at that time said that when time comes, I shall ask for them, not now. So then this maid actually knew that. He said that, well, your what is called, your Rama, who is not your son, that means your is going to be a son, but what about your own son? His name was Bharata. Now it is the time you can make your son the king of this great kingdom of Ayodhya. So he said that now you go to the king and say that now the time has come to ask for the boons. So what are the boons? So that Manthara, the name of the maid was Manthara. He said that, well, you ask the king that, well, my son will become the king after your death. And not only that, Rama will go to the forest for 14 years, exile. And in that way, you just go and tell. And he went to his husband and told that, I want this. Because you have promised that you will give me boons, now the time has come, I want this. And Dasharatha, being a good king, he actually could not deny that. But he was very much upset. And not only upset, he felt ill also. And at that time, Rama was not there, Bharata was not, so they were actually visiting some relatives. So when they came to know about that, Rama came first and he said that, well, if my father has promised this, and I shall definitely go for 14 years in exile, and Bharata will become the king. And Bharata also, in that way actually, he went to the forest. And Dasharatha, the king, was very much heartbroken. He fell ill. And Bharata was outside. That means he was in his maternal uncle's place. He came running. And when he heard all those stories, he was very much angry. Not only angry, he was angry to his mother also. And he scolded her. And then he thought that Rama is the best person to become the king. So he went to the forest to bring him back. But Rama denied that what I have said, actually, I am truthful. I want to go back. You better go and rule the kingdom. Then Bharata was also a very good person. He said that if you do not come, then do something that in your name I shall rule the kingdom till you come back. So he took as a gesture of humility, he took the pair of shoes of Rama and put that on the throne, and he used to sit on the ground, and in that way actually he administered the kingdom. So the point is that Rama was so truthful and was so calm and quiet, that means, and firm in his resolve, that means to keep the words of his father. You can imagine that he volunteered to go for 14 years into the forest. And the story of the Ramayana, actually his life in the forest, that teaches us many things. That means he had the opportunity in the forest to meet many sages, and he had to face many situations. And one of the situations, as I told you, that his wife also went with him and his younger brother also went with him. So his wife was abducted by the Ravana. So in this way, that means the qualifications that that has been described by Narada are like this. He had the capacity to bring all under himself and govern. That, of course, later on we see when becoming a king actually did that. He was highly intelligent and just also. That means he did not budge into some emotionalism. That means whether somebody is my father or brother or son, that I do some favor. He never did that. What is just, actually, he did that. Then he was the dread of his enemies also. That means when there is an enemy, actually, they actually will shudder in front of him. Of course, Ravana did not do that, because Ravana was a great king and he was very rich also. And when he saw Rama, he was just a beggar. That means when he was living in the forest, he was just like any other pauper. That means he did not have his kingdom, no wealth and all those things. So he always taunted him as a beggar. So that we see. Then there's a description how actually he looked. He had sumptuous shoulders, long arms, conch-like neck, and fleshy cheeks. His chest was broad and collarbones invisible. Probably it will be an envy for any bodybuilder. That means the way that has been described. He was the most noted of archers and a queller of all his foes. That means nobody actually could come in front of him, and in war or in game also, actually nobody could equal him. So with arms extended up to the knees, that is a very special, what is called feature. That means you see our arms never reach the knee, but his arms were really long, it reached the knees. I have heard Chaitanya also had that type of peculiarity. That means his arms reached the knees. Very peculiar quality. Then his chest was broad and collars were invisible. Yes. His head and gaze were extremely charming. His height and attractive limbs were all proportionate to one another. All the limbs of his body were flawless. His complexion was shining. He was regal in appearance, broad-chested and broad-eyed. He was endowed with beauty and all auspicious traits. Then actually the qualifications. Established in dharma and ever through his works, he had the good of all creatures in mind. That is the great thing. That means if somebody is really very powerful and all those things, probably he will be proud of himself. But he was not like that. He was very calm and quiet, and not only that, he always thought how to do good to others. Not only human beings, but to other creatures also. Far famed, learned and pure, he was ever vigilant. He protected those who sought shelter under him. He even subordinated his own interests to those persons who thus sought refuge under him. There are instances, that means those who came to take refuge in him, especially in the story of Ramayana, it comes that Ravana's brother, his name was Vibhishana. And Vibhishana actually knew who was Rama. That means he was an incarnation of God. He knew in his mind. So he always counseled Ravana that, well, you have abducted the wife of an incarnation of God. It will be never good for you. You better return him. But Ravana was so infatuated with Sita's beauty and whatever it may be, that he actually scolded him. And not only that, he wanted to kill him also. Then Vibhishana did not have any other way, so he actually crossed the sea and came to Rama and took refuge in him. But you see, he was a brother of Ravana, so there is always a suspicion that he might be a spy. Many people say that don't give any shelter. But Rama said that though a person who has come to me with the intention of taking shelter under me, I always give him shelter. That means he actually accepted him. And in that way he showed his magnanimity. So he possessed all auspicious traits. He ever protected his subjects and subdued his enemies. A shelter to all living beings, he was defender of dharma, was ever devoted to duties, always promoting the interest of his people. He was interested in the truth of all the Vedas and their auxiliary subjects. He was not only versed in the science of arms, but had also mastery of all arts and sciences. His memory was most wonderful, and he had great powers elucidating and explaining any subject. So whenever some intricate subject, there are instances when he had preached also. Preached in a sense, when he was in the forest, of course, he himself was very humble. He met many sages in those days. Sages used to live in the retreats in the forest. So he had the opportunity of visiting many of them, and he also learned from them. And there was an instance when one sage, a disciple of a sage, her name was Sabari. Sabari, she was a what is called simple lady, and she was a spiritual lady, and she did spiritual practices. And when her guru died, she said that, well, you stay in this ashrama, take care of everything. Rama will come, and by seeing Rama, talking to Rama, after that actually you cast your body. Because she wanted, because Guru has gone, so there is no other thing that needs to be done. She requested Guru to take with him in that way. She wanted to cast her body also. But Guru said, no, you wait till Rama comes. So she waited. And not only that, she did not know in the forest, in those days, no communication, nothing else. So he expected that Rama will come any time. So every day actually she waited for Rama. So in that way she used to keep flowers, fruits for offering and all those things. And ultimately Rama came and he offered all those things, and Rama was very happy. Then she asked that what I need to do. So Rama gave a sermon of devotion, how to practice devotion. And after practicing, actually she had the highest spiritual realization. Then he cast his body. The point is that when it was necessary, actually Rama gave spiritual advices also. There was another occasion when he actually taught his brother, Lakshmana also. Lakshmana sometimes did not understand what Rama was really, some decisions that Rama used to take. One of the decisions was like this, that when, after coming back from Lanka, that means when he came back with his wife and everybody and became the king, there was rumors that people are really saying that, well, we want a test for Sita, she was chased in his exile, all those things. Then ultimately he decided that Sita should be exiled. That means for the sake of making the people happy. That means people are asking for that. So he did that and asked Lakshmana to take Sita in the forest where Valmiki actually lived, and to keep in the custody of Valmiki. At that time Sita was pregnant, it is said. So Lakshmana actually protested that, what are you doing? That means your queen, and just people are saying, and you are just what is called banishing her without any reason in the forest. So, but it was the word of what is called Rama. So ultimately he did that, left Sita in Valmiki's custody and came back. Then actually he asked that, I do not understand what you are doing and why you are doing. At that time actually Rama gave a sermon to Lakshmana, which actually pacified him. So in that way there are occasions when, for the sake of righteousness and what he was doing, he needed to explain, and those explanations are really spiritual teachings for everybody. So in this way we see that ultimately these are the qualities that he has illustrated in his life, that has been said. In the gravity and depth of personality, he was like the ocean. In his capacity to bear heavy responsibility, he was like the Himalayas. In valor and warlike qualities, he was like a Vishnu. Vishnu is considered to be the most powerful. Of course, Rama himself is an incarnation of God, Vishnu. So naturally, he possessed all the qualities of his, what is called, original form. So there are occasions, that means he was a small boy, about 14 years old. It so happened that there was a Rakshasa, that means Rakshashi actually, demoness. And she was pestering the forest dwellers and the sages who used to live in the forest, do spiritual practices and perform different yagnas, that means religious ceremonies. So one of the sages came to Dasaratha, that means the king of that area, and said that, well, please give Rama, he is so powerful, he will really kill this demoness. And Dasaratha's father said that he is just 14 years old. How actually you can think that he will face that demoness, powerful demoness? Then Vishwamitra, that means the sage, said that, well, I know who is he. I have full faith that he will be able to do that. So he took him to the forest, and actually Rama killed that powerful demoness. So the point is that he had a valor and warlike qualities like a Vishnu. So in the mellowness of his personality, he was like a moon. That means he was very charming. If you see his conversations or dialogues and all those things with ordinary people, he was very charming, attractive. And people were melted actually when he used to talk. So when his anger was aroused, he was like a fire at the time of the world's dissolution. That means, well, if he thought that that person should be killed, he is doing something wrong, I have to punish him, actually nobody could stop him. In patience, he was equal to earth. In generosity, he was a match to Kubera. Kubera means that he is considered to be the treasure of the heaven. That means he was in charge of all the wealth that the heaven. So he had that capacity to give away when people wanted. So there is a story that Sita actually, the story is like this, that means Sita, when they have returned to Ayodhya, that means he was ruling, Rama was ruling, Sita was there. In those days, the queen actually used to sit by the side of the king. In that way, they used to administer, give audience and all those things. So Sita said that you have so much wealth, and why poor people are living here? You just give away whatever you have. So he said, well, yes. So he satisfied Sita, said his treasurer, that means the keeper of the treasury, that you open the doors and let people take away whatever I have. And in that way, people came and took away all the money or all those things. They were there. So they are very happy. And in that way, a time was passing. So it so happened that palace, building. So we also have buildings and all those things. And time to time, we have to ask a roofer also to come when it leaks. So one day it so happened that the palace roof was leaking. And Sita told Rama that we need to repair the roof. You ask somebody to come. Then Rama sent word that palace roof is leaking. Let some mason or roofer come and repair it. So his people went and did not find anybody to do the roofing work. Why? Because all of them are satisfied. They have money, they don't work. And that is so happened. Then actually it is a lesson for Sita. Why actually that people should work. So in that way Rama taught, though he obliged Sita also. So his generosity was like that. And ultimately Narada ended his what is called describing Rama's life, that dear son of Kaushala, his mother's name was Kaushala, was endowed with every conceivable good quality. So in that way, if you want to have how actually good qualities adheres to a person, just look at Rama. The point is that it is not possible for one human being to have all these qualities. So it has been, that has been enumerated in this life of Rama. And by reading or by conceiving or by thinking of him, actually it is possible to have some of his qualities or imagine what the qualities and how they function. In that way, a sort of meditation is called, and that actually helps. In that way, actually, we can imbibe some of his qualities in our lives. That is the point. So he is considered to be the role model of any human being at all times. And if somebody reads and imitates or learns from his life, actually he will get light or inspiration from Rama's life. I would like to finish, there is a little time. You know, we have a concept of chosen ideal. Chosen ideal means spiritual ideals or spiritual personalities whom you think, and you will get the qualities, and in that way you can progress in spirituality. It may be mythological gods and goddesses, it may be avatars as they are called, that means those who live on earth as a human being but possess highest divine qualities. In that way there are mentions that they become chosen ideals. So these chosen ideals and this role model, that means Rama is such a person. His life is full of human activities. All the qualities or the activities that are done actually find in him in the best possible way. That means human beings ideally will do what Rama has done as a human being in human circumstances. And at the same time, actually, he is an incarnation of God. That means he had highest realization. He went to school with a sage, his name was Vashishta. He was a family priest or family teacher, so he went and he had learned all the scriptures and all those things and had the highest realization also. So this type of persons actually, this side actually they are human, on the other side actually they are what is called divine. So when we look to them, think of them, meditate on them actually, that will be easy because they are human beings. So all the qualities we can really relate to our lives, our situations, circumstances, understand all those things. In that way, they become what is called, you don't have to think of mythological gods and goddesses, you may not believe them. But here actually a person who possessed these human qualities at the same time divine qualities. So by thinking of them actually we can imbibe what is called these good qualities, and at the same time actually it leads us to the divine qualities or divine what is called enlightenment. So that is the great advantage of this type of personalities. And in essence, or just I want to mention that Sri Ramakrishna was a teacher and he had guided all the disciples that came to him. And for two of his disciples, one was Swami Vivekananda and another was Swami Niranjanananda. So for them actually it is said, it is not really known, later on actually come to know, it's in some places but it has been described or somebody has come to know, that he had given Swami Vivekananda as chosen ideal, Rama. So he was very much enchanted by that. There is a description when he was initiated actually, how he actually behaved and how actually it was effective on him. So the point is this, these type of persons, either we can set aside to be fictional, but at the same time it is very useful for our life if we actually think of them, meditate on them, and in that way they enrich our spiritual life.